we talk ways to make our behaviors more or our habits more obvious. Why? Because the more aware we are of our tendencies, the better we can assess whether these are the behaviors that we will promote for our success or add to our delayed success. You then will provide a self-management worksheet to help you organize your thoughts around 7 key attributes or actions or behaviors that are critical to self-management. So let's jump right in. So the first thing is, what habits did you learn about yourself? Now remember, the formula for mastering effective self-management is focusing on both habits and mindset. The equation, honestly, is quite simple. Improved habits plus improved mindset equals improved self-improvement, self-management. And once again, self-management are those characteristics that help you feel and be more productive at home and in the workplace. So as a quick recap, we're focusing on 2 systems here. One is habits and one is mindset. Habits are those behaviors that feed into our ability to reach our goals. But then mindset, as we start accomplishing our goals or doing better things or practicing better habits, we start seeing a shift in our perspective to how attainable those goals are to. So what I want to do is I want to get into our self-management worksheet a little bit better. So once again, self-management skills are those characteristics that help you feel and be more productive at home and in the workplace. And think about something. The more attractive an opportunity is, the more likely it is to become habit forming. It is the anticipation of the reward, not the fulfillment of it, that gets us to take action. So these attributes or these actions or behaviors that I like to say of self-management are designed to help you anticipate reward and therefore take action. And so looking at the 7 attributes, we've got reflection, self-awareness, planning, monitoring, time management, flexibility, and self-appraisal. Now I want you to keep in mind and jot this down. These are attributes, but I like to say that they're actions or behaviors that's going to help us improve our self-management skills. Formula for you to try out today and this week. So here's the formula on your screen. You've recognized your current habits from your habit scorecard. So I want you to write down, after my current habit, I will, one of those 7 attributes, one of those 7 behaviors, I want you to stack that attribute on top of that current habit, right? Because where you're at is present tense to future tense. And so stack that attribute on top of that current habit. And after you've identified that attribute, I want you to stack the habit you want to develop on top of that. What you're doing is you're seeing your future self, right? You're delaying immediate gratification to better prepare your practices, your systems, so that you can develop the habits you want, so that you can become the person that you want to become and manage yourself better. So I want to talk about dopamine for a quick minute. I know we're getting scientific here, but I think this is important to understand context when it comes to self-management, when it comes to action, when it comes to looking at attributes as opportunities for rewards. So if you don't know, dopamine was first discovered in 1958 by Arvid Carlsson and Nilsson Hiller at the National Heart Institute of Sweden. Now, dopamine is created in various parts of the brain and is critical in all sorts of brain functions, including thinking and moving and sleeping and mood, attention, and motivation. But then research began to show that dopamine is also critical in causing seeking behavior. Dopamine causes you to want, to desire, to seek out and search for things. It increases your general level of arousal and your goal-directed behavior. Now, I want you to keep that in mind because the key is creating a sense of urgency, creating action driven by certain cravings. And those cravings are driven by the opportunity for reward, okay? Did you know that the human brain rewards itself for mistakes when it can? Naturally, the brain wants to reward itself. Why? Because reflection allows us the chance to reflect and understand on our mistakes. In other words, the brain is looking for an opportunity to avoid what scientists call punishment avoidance, to replace it with reward, a result that explains production of dopamine when we learn from our mistakes. That's why careful and consistent reflection is a critical attribute for self-management. Number two, self-awareness. Self-awareness is being confident in what you have to offer, whether it is personally or professionally. Self-awareness is not only important for one's self-esteem, but is also the first step in the process of full acceptance or change. Without understanding why one thinks the way we think or why we act the way we act, we may never fully appreciate ourselves or see the importance of making changes to improve us. So self-awareness gives us power and a sense of peace or happiness. This newly found strength will more than likely carry over into our work life. However, as we perform our duties and how we interact with one another. Better acclimated with self-awareness, I've got an awareness sheet that I'm going to include in the chat function in a moment for you to take as your assignment this week, but I'll also share it with you real quickly as well. So if you're seeing my screen still, you're seeing multiple attributes, right? Qualities, I should say. And the goal is to uncover and understand your top 5 qualities and relate how they may be valuable to your home life as well as your work life. Now, I want you to read through the qualities listed on the worksheet this week. And I want just to make you aware of how you are, right? What you're aware of. I want you to choose 10 qualities that accurately describe you. From those 10, select the top 5 characteristics that you exhibit the most. As you're doing this, once again, you're developing a better sense of self-awareness. Next is planning. So planning is what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit, according to Aristotle. And getting back to brain chemistry and magic, imagining and creating what we might be, essentially the what is, parts are constant communications with the what could be parts. In other words, we're constantly looking for proactive ways to plan our next step. So here are 5 key steps I'm going to give you. And write this down. Anticipate the end goal as you start planning. There are 5 things. Anticipate the end goal, right? What is it that you actually want to accomplish? Identify the task and subtask. Sequence and problem solve around likely obstacles, because there are going to be some obstacles along the way. We have to be mindful of that. You want to block out distractions. So whether it's going into a different room or silencing your phones or just finding some me time, right? And then ultimately you want to get the reward, because planning should lead to proper reward, which once again has an impact on brain chemistry, which produces the dopamine effect, which creates a craving for us to take action. You'll hear me say this time and time again. Why? Because I want us to keep in mind there's a cyclical nature to how we improve our habits, which improve our mindset, which ultimately improves our self-management skills. Next is monitoring. Quite simply, if you're going to achieve real change, you have to get past the point where just by recording it is enough. Because short-term change, that's really what that is. So before working on the actual behavior you may want to change, it's important to monitor that behavior for some time before you try to change it. In other words, self-control is an ineffective strategy if we don't change the environment that we live in. So what we've done, we've covered 4 of the 7 attributes, and we're going to cover the other 3 next week. But what I want to do is, in the meantime, I want to make sure that, for one, you talk about what's next for us, right? So as we wrap up this week's BCG Bites, I want you to do a couple of things. For one, I want you to complete your self-awareness worksheet. And if you didn't receive it in the chat, I'll make sure it's put in there again. I want you to do some habit stacking based on the equation that I showed you earlier. Once again, identify your current habit, stack on top of that the attribute or one of the 7 actions that you'd like to take, and then stack on top of that habit that you want to demonstrate. What you're doing is you're creating a visual of where you want to be based on where you currently are. Lastly, practice 2 to 3 of those attributes this week. 2 or 3 of the 7 attributes that are on that worksheet this week. And then we're going to get prepared for week 3, which is once again dealing with the other 3 final actions or attributes from that worksheet.